On windy days like today, or maybe a little bit windier, my mom would say, it's Ivan Ben Los. No? I'll show you. This is Ivan Ben Los, the god of the wind spirit. And on windy days, or windier days than today, when the winds are favorable, my mom would say, we have Ivan's blessing. And this used to be the Lake Johanna General Store. And when the telephone happened, it became the local switchboard. When the automobile came, it became the local filling station. Over here, this is my great-grandmother, Hannah Elias and Espy. She ran the store. And my great-aunt, Hannah Christensen Espy, ran the store after that. And this is my mom, Betty Espy Lacktorin, and she ran the store after that. This is a picture of me and my mom. And my name is Bethany Lacktorin, and this is where I grew up. Now, to everyone else, in the days of the Lake Johanna store, this was just a driveway. But to my brother and me, it was a runway. And every day we would run back and forth, trying to fly the kite. Some days we'd even hold hands and run together with the kite, thinking our combined speed would be enough. One day my dad came home and saw this poor crumpled kite lying on the ground, and he picked it up. He took a good look. He said, oh, it's got a nice shape, a good point. Kind of looks like a bird, but your bird is missing something. So we went to the back room, and he came out with a long line of rags tied together, and he tied it to the end of the kite. He said, there, your bird has a tail. We were so excited. We followed him all the way out to the wayside rest. I can't wait to show you. Accordion is not my first instrument. The first instrument I learned to play was violin. And that is because on Tuesdays, my Uncle Olaf would come to the store with his violin. I met him when he was 90 years old. He was a tall, lanky man with a big, toothy smile. He would bring his violin and sit with me and my mom in the back of the store. I thought it was the most magical thing in the world. When he was 101 years old, he was in the Terrace Mill fiddling contest about 10 miles up the road, and he won. A couple years later, I went to visit him at the nursing home. I had just started taking violin lessons, and I wanted to play him a song. I remember when I took my violin out and started playing, he got so excited, he almost stood up out of his wheelchair. And he said, "Nurse, go to my room and get my box out from under my bed." And so she did. I remember when he opened up the box and took out his violin. That hunched over old man became strong and tall again, and his shaking hand became steady when the bow finally gripped the string. And we played this song. This is the flower shed. When my mom used to talk about the flower shed, I always thought she meant flowers. But what she really meant was flour as in baking flour. And this building, one of the last remaining structures from the days of the Lake Johanna General Store, wasn't on cinder blocks before. It was actually dug 6 inches into the ground to keep out the rodents. It can hold about a wagon load or so of supplies. My Uncle Wayne told me that my great-grandma and him would sit here and watch the hills for wagons. And they were watching for one very particular wagon. It was the wagon carrying peaches. It would only come once or twice a year. He said he had no idea how she could tell which wagon it was. But when she spotted it, she would get on the switchboard and she would call everyone. So if you can imagine, within an hour, this whole yard was full of people eating peaches. On Fridays, my brother and my mom and I would sit here and watch the highway. And we were watching for cars, a very particular car. It was the car carrying my dad. Because on Fridays, he would come home from work in the cities. We would know which car it was because at the top of the hill, he would blink his lights 3 times in a row. And when we saw that, we would raise our hands and we would wave. Now we knew he couldn't see us. And the trees are a lot taller now than they were then, so the view was a lot different. But even today, when I hear cars coming, and you can hear cars coming from miles away, when I hear them coming, I like to listen to them approach and pass by. And if you do this, and we'll do this, you'll find that the sound of the prairie stops to listen with you. And if you listen long enough for the car to pass by, the sound of the prairie always returns. So, the next time I hear a car approaching, I will raise my hand. My mom collected all of these rocks. Every single one by one. I'm just trying to find a place for all of them. So before we get too far into the trail, I want to make sure that you all watch your step. There's a lot of gopher holes, so be careful. There used to be a lot more gopher holes here than now. Back when the first immigrants came here and wanted to farm the prairie, these holes were quite a nuisance to them. So they put a bounty on gophers. And even now, if I bring in a gopher, and not even the whole gopher, just the two front paws, I can get $2. I suppose they figure no front paws, no pesky holes. So watch your step. Now, believe it or not, this was the first woods my dad ever took me hunting. And I had been after him for days. I said, you always take my brother, you take my cousin, you take my uncles, but you never take me. When is it my turn? So after a couple days, he said, all right, we're going hunting. So he got on his big boots and his camo coat and his bright orange stocking cap. And I was ready. I had on my boots and my big winter coat. And he took one look at me and he said, you're missing something. So he went in the back room and he came out with a big, bright orange life vest. And he smushed it over my head and tied it up real good around my jacket. And I knew I was ready. I remember we walked down here, and I was walking so slowly and listening so carefully, trying to be as quiet as he was.
Stop! 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 What are you doing? Who am I? How did you get? I recognize you. I recognize you all. Come in here. Yes, come in. Come in. I see you've been playing all the wind chimes. That's my job, you know. I do this every day. I play the wind chimes. What? Yeah. Oh, man. How did I get here? I am Ivan Bainlow. The wind god. The god of the wind. Ah, that's it. Yeah, I remember. I rap on your windows. Yes. And I howl through the door cracks. I creep under the bus while you wait in line to get in. I glide across the floor in your house to surround feet Your bare feet are... Making a path directly to you. Keep warm. For cold or pneumonia to follow. This is why beds are so high off the ground. I wouldn't be afraid. It's only Ivan Bane, though, the god of the wind. I'm Santa's helper. I'm friends with Santa, and I help him talk to the reindeer. I guide Rudolph. Without Ivan Bane, Santa would surely lose his way, and all these cookies would be for nothing.
Here is where my property ends.
Wayside rest on 104, just past the general store. Like a deer in headlights, I stopped and stared to breathe the air. Like a caterpillar who's clawed enough, I just woke up. I met the wind in his mustache, that tall, tall grass. He said not to be, don't be afraid. And he knew my name. The hills are alive with this, like they always been. Like my friend the wind reminds me. Wayside rest on 104, just past the general store. Like a deer in headlights, I stopped and stared. Pulled up a chair.
When I was little, I used to tell people that this was my ocean. And here, this spot, was where my dad flew the kite. And he ran all the way down this hill, and by the time he got to the foot of the next hill over, the wind took the kite and held it right there, and it hovered for just a moment. And when he got to the top of the hill, the wind took it and up it went. When I finally caught up to him, the kite was already in the air, steady and stable, and he'd already started unraveling the string. So we stood together and watched the sky. I felt like his first mate, and he was my captain. When he finally realized I was standing there, he said, "Oh, here." Hold on to this. And over here is some history.
Polk County immigrant history began in the spring of 1862, when four Norwegian immigrant families took homestead near Lake Johanna. During the 1862 Dakota War, those immigrants evacuated to the Painesville-St. Cloud area. This park was founded on a small portion of the homestead of one of those four immigrants. Resettlement of the area and a perceived threat of hostilities in 1865 resulted in Company G of the 2nd Regiment Minnesota Cavalry being ordered to build Fort Lake Johanna in this vicinity, which formed a line from the west at Fort Abercrombie on the South Dakota border to the south on the Iowa border near Fairmont. Intended as a defense against the threat of Dakota attacks, these grade log fortifications were never to see action, as nearly all Dakota people had been already forcibly removed and exiled from their homeland. After several months, the fear of hostilities subsided, and the fort was abandoned. Area immigrants reused the fort logs to build homes and other buildings. A marker has been erected at the Fort Lake Johanna site on the highest ridge of the hills northeast of this park. And now, after 150 years of exile from Minnesota, some Dakota people have returned to their homeland.
I have something for you. Walk slowly and carefully and recognize everything. Walk slowly and carefully and recognize. Walk slowly and listen carefully. Recognize everything. This is one of my favorite places. I come here to watch the clouds. I like to imagine that they move across the sky like the buffalo once roamed these hills.
Mia tatanka ohitika sisitawan wapetawan Dakota. I am strong buffalo of the Dakota. Dakota means the allies or the friendly people. We have been here since time immemorial. It used to be all frozen with ice, and it melted and became a big lake, a big ocean. And when the water is gone, we come out from underneath the earth. They tell us that we have been here since life began, and we will be here till there is no more life. So you better keep some Dakota around. Oh, Grandfather God, take the evil from the bloodshed of these days. Put some goodness into us this day. Lead us to true kindness so that we can heal ourselves and help save the world. For magic time was my time, when we all understood each other. The animals talked to us all the time. The trees sang songs to us. The sweet flowers performed lovely acts of pleasure for us. Way back then, matters not now, says them. Magic misty past floats around and around. The rivers were still our relatives, and the fish just swam into our lives, and the glorious mountains and hills remembered what happened long ago to your past. Ah, but way back then matters not now, says them. What is magic? It's this reality that is unreal. What is time? Time knows no I. Magic is me. O Grandfather God, lean to hear our feeble voices, sent by all those seeking peace surrounded by violence. We emerge from the east with the bright light of a new day of hope, and we walk to the south, where life comes from and brings us a warm rain to wash away the woes of Elam. And we go to the south where all life goes and seeks guidance during this journey. And then we travel to the north where the cold wind will help us to endure the pain. And we enter the center of the circle and we reach down and we caress our Mother Earth, who loves and provides for all of her children. And we look up to the sky and we thank you, Creator, for all this life you have given to all of us. And we know that something so powerful as the sun you have been, you made, and will be. So we place our prayers of peace there. And we hear you when you say, peace must be taught, peace must be shared, and peace must be the law for all.
When I was little, I used to tell people that this was my ocean. I would come out here and stand so still. Still enough so I could feel the ground slowly inching forward, growing and receding, growing and receding. This place where we're standing was once a glacier, melted into an ocean 10 drops a day. Where we're standing was once underwater. If I could learn how to be 1,000 years old, to be rejoined again when the glacier comes to collect me, I'll still say, this place where I'm standing, where you're standing, where you're standing, was once called Oanase, Indian country, the Sunberg Alps, God's country, Ordway Prairie. Generations behind me, I'm told, are mine. This is where they meet, and here is how I know them. Before I leave again, I must tell her, thank you.
We are drawing near every day. One by one we'll all be gathered home to that joy that fadeth not away. One by one we'll all be gathered home. Gathering, gathering, one by one we'll all be gathered home. Gathering, gathering, one by one we'll all be gathered home.
The wonderful Twin Cities Sacred Heart singers, the Fossil sorry, I gotta get this right, the Prairie Fire Lady Choir. Thank you all for being here.